Saxton Moore is an Emmy-winning animation director, producer, and creator with more than 2 decades of experience bringing bold, imaginative stories to life. He has led creative work for some of the world's most recognized entertainment brands, including Netflix, Nickelodeon, Disney Plus, and Sesame Street, while helping revitalize iconic franchises such as Care Bears and Strawberry Shortcake. Most recently, he developed, produced, and directed the acclaimed animated series and feature film Iyanu for Cartoon Network and HBO Max. Beyond animation, Saxton is an accomplished author and illustrator whose work has been published by Scholastic Penguin Random House and HarperCollins, including the Legends of Hip Hop children's book series. He is also the creator of Soul Sister, an original Afro-futuristic manga and anime franchise that blends cosmic mythology, action, and coming-of-age storytelling. The manga is slated for publication in the summer of 2027, with the anime currently in development. Throughout his career, Saxton has remained committed to amplifying underrepresented voices and creating visually ambitious stories that inspire audiences around the world. Welcome to Drawing from the Soul, Mr. Saxton Moore.
All right. So, today we have Saxton Moore on Drawing from the Soul. As you can see, our format today is a little bit different than what you're used to. We wanted to do something a little creative because we have an exceptionally creative brother here on the set that we are blessed to have in the studio. We're just casually drawing and creating and sketching. And today we want to know from Saxton Moore your journey. Well, first of all, for the people who don't know you, can you break it down, like share with the people who you are, your background, and some of your career highlights?
Um, I've been drawing and for most of my life, and started out as a kid, age 7, with the love of Muppets, and thanks to the magic of Jim Henson and Henson Studio, that's what got me started into drawing, and that led for my love for animation, cartoons. Then it went into the wonderful world of Disney, and then I discovered comic books. And then by the time I was graduating from high school, I wanted to become an animator. And I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta to try to pursue that career. And after that, I kind of fell into Cartoon Network as an animation director. Right before Cartoon Network launched, was an animation director, and we helped brand the network with interstitials and shorts that came on between each episode of Johnny Bravo, Johnny Quest, so Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, all the classical Cartoon Network cartoons. That was my boot camp for mastering the craft of animation. And so after I did that, I did music video for Tony Braxton, and that kind of led me to do animated music video for a few artists throughout my career. And then, let's see, after Cartoon Network, I started my own company. I ran my own company for about 8 years. Uh, and then I moved to LA. I've lived in LA. I've lived in San Francisco, Cleveland, Ohio, when I worked with American Greetings. That's where the Care Bears Strawberry Shortcake projects came from. Atlanta's home, so I always venture out and come back home. This is also where we brought the pre-production for Iyanu here in Atlanta and brought on wonderful artists like Dawud here onto the project as his first time directing debut. And it was a pleasure to do that. That was an amazing project with a lot of talented folks based here in Atlanta and afar. Um, so yeah, now I'm pursuing an avenue in writing. I'm rep by New Leaf Literary Agency as an author illustrator, and I'm working on focusing on my own stories.
Actually, you use the word interstitials. So there might be some young people out here or just people not familiar with that term. So, you know, I know you shared the history you had working at Cartoon Network, and you mentioned interstitials. So for those who don't know, can you break that down? Like, what is that?
Interstitials are little short commercials that come on between episodes or the break to pay the bills with commercials in between in the middle of the show. Interstitials kind of segue things into and out of the show. The part
Interstitch things together.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like to me in
So,
my mind.
so what was happening is if there was a Powerpuff Girl episode on, then we would be able to animate those characters to say we'll be right back after these messages.
Okay.
And then also we would do another Powerpuff Girl interstitial that says welcome back to the show. And what was beautiful about the interstitials, like I said, that was my boot camp because I had to frequently switch styles. So I'd have to make it look just like the show. The other thing is, they were like 5 to 10 seconds long, and so that was my chance to figure out how to tell a story in a short increment of time and make it entertaining. So I had to learn anything from timing to staging, because you only had 5 to 10 seconds to do so.
Whoa, that's a short. That's a short.
Yeah.
You said so much that makes me even more curious about your journey. You started talking about as a child watching cartoons, and many of us grew up not being able to watch cartoons until Saturday morning. And then fast forward, you are at Cartoon Network. What is that like I mean, how did you feel at that point? Because it sounds like that was your, first um, professional job, so to speak, career job. Was that the case? You went to the Art Institute of Atlanta and then you watch cartoons and then you're at Cartoon Network. Like,
Yeah, there was a little bit of a journey before then. Like I said, I lived in San Francisco. I kind of reconnected with my father. My father was out of my life from age 7 to me graduating high school. And so we reconnected at my graduation and he invited me out to San Francisco.
high school graduation. Wow.
And I went all the way out to San Francisco and I was excited because he lived there and I can reconnect with him, but also I knew that all the animation was done in California. I didn't know it was in Los Angeles, but I was like, "Here's my ticket to California." I mean, so let's go. My first internship was at a studio called Wild Brain Studios. There, Peter Chung, who created Eon Flux. My mentor there was Ed Bell, who's a phenomenal animator. There was a lot of
Shout out to Ed Bell.
yeah, shout out to Ed Bell, Sensei. And so that was my first foray into animation is my internship there in San Francisco. And then when I came back to Atlanta after living there for about a year, I worked at a place called Crawford Design Effects, and they were doing animation for TV commercials like Ford during the Super Bowl and things like that. It was kind of a sweet job because we probably did a commercial like every 4 to 5 months. And so in between that time, I'm just drawing what I want to draw, going out and having 2 hour lunches and things like that. And
What you want to draw?
as if some of the guys that were working there had left and went someplace else. I knew not where. And so eventually, uh, those guys showed up and they're like, "Hey, you should come to lunch with us. We're working on this. We're working at this new studio called Primal Screen." So, all right, cool. And then they would always invite me to lunch and try to get me to come work over there. I was like, man, I'm not trying to go over there. I got health benefits. I got this great job. I take 2 hour lunches. I can draw what I want to do. And every 4 or 5 months, I can animate a commercial. And I didn't know, there's like, oh man, you should come by. So I finally went by and I walked into Primal Screen, which was over by Piedmont Park. And when I walked into the room, on the walls, they had cork board all the way up from the floor to the ceiling. There was computers, there was people working everywhere. And I immediately reminded me of what I saw on The Wonderful World of Disney when I discovered what animation was. And it was a bunch of guys getting together. They were really nice, sweet guys joking around. And on the wall, there was storyboards of like Speed Racer, Looney Tunes, Flintstones, because Cartoon Network had the Hanna-Barbera library and the Warner Brothers library. And these guys were working on some of my favorite shows. And they were like, they're going to launch a 24-hour cartoon channel. And I was like, man, this is amazing, but nobody's going to watch cartoons for 24 hours a day. That's what I was sitting there. And then they were like, they started sending offers to come work at the place. And I was like, oh, now, no, I got a full-time job. This is easy money. I don't know how long people are going to watch cartoons for 24 hours. I love cartoons, and I don't know if people going to watch it 24 hours a day. So it was a leap of faith. I took a job there, and that was like my training ground for animation and where I learned most about animating things and timing and stuff like that, because I had an opportunity to animate anything from water to, certain characters in different styles. I learned about blurs and in-betweens and smears and squash and stretch on the job with characters that people loved and recognized.
Um, I wanted to ask, uh, I didn't really want to jump ahead so far. I mean, that's really a lot of good information. I want to know, you mentioned your father.
hmm
Um, was your father creative? Like, did he draw? Did he introduce you to anything within the this art realm, or like how did what role did he play in any of this?
Well, when I was younger, I never remembered my parents together. I was always living with my mom and I would visit my dad on the weekends. From an early age, I never remember them living in the same household. So my father wasn't the creative one. At the time, I didn't know my mom was the creative one either. And so what my dad facilitated was on the weekends, he would take me to the movies or take me to the toy stores. He was the dad that was like, "Hey, I'm gonna buy him all the toys he wants, make up the time on the weekends." And so Star Wars at that time, Star Wars had came out, Empire Strikes Back, so he would always buy me the Star Wars action figures. Anything I wanted with the Muppets, we would support that because I was heavy into the Muppets and Sesame Street. So that's that's where um that's where his involvement is.
Where did you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Oh, I'm a fellow Hoosier.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Indianapolis. So was when you would go see your father on the weekends, was that Indiana or was
hmm
that LA?
It was in Indiana.
Okay. I see how pivotal it was, your high school graduation when you ended up in California.
hmm
Um, at what point did you really believe that you could go from being, a young person who loved cartoons on the weekends to actually doing this as a professional career? Like, what gave you the confidence or the clarity that this was something you could do as a career? At what point along the way from, you know, Wild Brain to Primal Screen to Cartoon Network? At what point did you believe?
Well, growing up in high school, I was the guy that did the airbrushing and doing artwork on people's pants and stuff like that. And I was always known ever since I was in elementary school, I was known as the kid that could draw. So I felt a responsibility to maintain that mantle.
Yes.
of the guy that could draw the best. And that carried all the way through high school. And then by the time it was almost time to graduate, it was time to figure out what I was going to do for the rest of my life to make ends meet. And so all I had at that point, I was pretty damn good at drawing. And so I need to find a job drawing. My mom wanted me to be in architecture. And so I was like loving cartoons and animation. And like I said, when I saw The Wonderful World of Disney, Uncle Walt pulled back the curtain and he showed the animators. I was like, wait a second, people get paid to draw cartoons for a living. I was like, that's the job I want. And so I was very determined to trying to find a way. If those guys could get paid to draw all day, uh, for the rest of their lives, then that's the job I wanted. And so I was determined to find a way. And going to the Art Institute of Atlanta was the only way that I knew here in Georgia, try to do that. So when I got a chance to go reconnect with my father in San Francisco, I sought out animation studios. Now, what's interesting is I found Wild Brain because I knew of all the amazing commercials that they were doing on television. I remember Eon Flux. I kind of stumbled into that building. Uh, and this goes back to one's calling, is my dad worked in the city of San Francisco, and we would drive this back route to avoid traffic. And it was a truck area where they stored, the trailers of trucks. And there was a building back there, and it had no windows. It was just a building. It had a door on the front. It was like something kept calling me to that building. And I was like, Dad, can you pull over? One day we would go there every day. Can you pull over and let me see what's in that building? Because there was no signage, no window, no nothing. I opened the door and there was a long staircase that went all the way up to the third floor. And I walked up there. At the top of the steps was a cardboard cutout of Eon Flux from MTV that, created by Peter Chung. And so I walked up there and there was a receptionist there. And she said, this is an animation studio. And I asked for a card or a connection with somebody. They gave me a card. I went back and I put together, she asked did I have a portfolio. I didn't know what a portfolio was, but my dad took me to an art supply store. I bought a portfolio and I put all my best drawings in there. And that's when I met my mentor, Ed Bell. They took me in and that was called, I think it was called Colossal Pictures. I believe that was called Colossal Pictures. And then after I got in with Ed Bell, um, I think a week or so later, they let everybody go. They let everybody go. And that whole group went off to form Wild Brain. And that's how I got my internship there. So yeah, that was kind of like fate. And my determination kind of drew me to it literally. And it's all about relationships and things that you build. And when I came back to Atlanta, the people that I met here that got me into Crawford Design Effects, I brought my portfolio and I tried to find a way to get in there.
I'm, listening to your particular journey, uh, it seems like the common thread, in addition to determination and fate, is also your focus on being resourceful, like how you searched out for opportunities,
Hmm.
you know, and then, continuing on your journey, I hear about calling, like, not just a calling in terms of what you are to become, but like a calling to that particular building. And then there's a staircase, and then there's, beyond,
Looks.
yes, at the top of the staircase. So I just want people, and especially, young creatives who, may be wondering how can I do this? Well, it's certainly determination, being resourceful, and knowing that there's a calling and a purpose, inside of you.
Um, so we see what role your father played. I mean, because that's significant that he helped you to get took you to help you get your portfolio set up. Um, definitely give him props for that. So you said your mom was creative. Did she play instruments? Did she
No, I didn't.
draw? Like,
My mom worked at Eckridge. which was the hot dog.
The sausage company?
Yeah. She made I buy her something now. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I knew about her is that she worked at the hot dog plant. And, I never knew she had a creative bone in her body, but she would always support the things that I wanted to do. And, we moved to Georgia, and she had retired from the Eckrich, hot dog factory. And, then I come to find out years later that she had tried to open up a floral place, to sell flowers and things like that, and she would draw flowers as well. And what's funny is I never knew that she could draw flowers until she grabbed a piece of my notebook paper and drew like this, a ballpoint pen. She drew this beautiful flower, and at that moment, I think I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old. I had a realization. It's like, man, she can draw, but she's never shown that to me. It was just that one time and one time only. She never did anything after. She never did anything before that in front of me. But it blew my mind, and I think that's where I got it from. And what I try to tell people too is, you got one life. And, some people believe in past lives. If there's past lives, there's also future lives.
Mhm.
And what I tell people is what you're doing now is beyond your parents' wildest dreams. So if she ever had the desire to get in a creative space, the time that she was living in didn't, drawing wasn't a reality to make a living off of to most people back then. And so that she wasn't able to see that I was successful at doing so. Um, but knowing that she had that ability and then pursue it, I kind of carry that off, and my aspirations far surpass what she had ever imagined.
It's like the kernel of that purpose is in her, and who knows before her even, and then that seed is planted in you
Right.
to carry out. It kind of reminds me of the story of uh, the origin story in a sense of Ianu as the chosen, and realizing the purpose that is in you as a gift, and that you're empowered to carry it forth.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, what is it that you are excited about creatively these days?
What I'm most excited about these days is my journey as an author. It took me most of my life and my career in the animation industry to realize that most of the shows and films that we love and adore that we watch, uh, 90% of those I would say is from published books. Has a built-in audience, and it took me a long time to figure that out. I actually, during the pandemic, when the pandemic hit, I wanted to focus on becoming a writer, so I took this thing called Masterclass. And Masterclass had, uh, James Patterson. It had Shonda Rhimes, all teaching the art of storytelling. And I was like, if I'm going to pay that subscription and try to learn how to write from the best in the business. And Margaret Atwood, who created Handmaid's Tale, said something that kind of hit me to the core, had a realization, because even at that time when the pandemic happened, a lot of things shut down. Animation work got really slow. And so as I pursued this writing career, she said something. She said, I wrote Handmaid's Tale when I was a young woman. Nobody told me what I could and couldn't write or say or do. Uh, and I put that all in my book. If anyone wants to come along and turn it into a film, a TV show, a play, what have you, and they want to change it all to hell, do so. But send me my check. If you want to read my story, buy the book. And that really hit home for me because in entertainment and animation, there's a lot of people involved in the storytelling process and writing. When we were going through the project with Iana, there was a lot of changes and things like that. But no one has control over the author's voice. they tell the story that they want to say. Of course, there's editors, but at the end of the day, it's your story. And that's how, when some people see films, like, oh man, the book was better because that's the author's true vision for the story. And so that's what I'm most excited about now is my journey as an author.
That's
Tell stories of my own.
Yeah. So you took advantage of the time during the pandemic to learn and become skilled at a whole nother avenue of creativity as an author. And even though a lot of people would have been really impressed to hear that you worked on Tony Braxton's video. In fact, which one was it?
He wasn't man enough.
He wasn't man enough. So what did you, just so we'll know, what did you do on that video?
Uh, we were working, and it was while I was working at Cartoon Network, at Promise Screen, doing a lot of those commercials. Is we she was I think it was had Robin Givens in there, and they were at a nightclub. I didn't know what it was going to be used for, but they wanted her a futuristic version of Tony Braxton, and she's dancing in a club, and it's almost like futuristic. And there was these thugs or futuristic punks at a nightclub, and they're watching her, and she seduces them, and then she shoots out these beams. It was kind of silly, but a few of my friends that was working with me doing the Cartoon Network bumpers, I brought them on, and we worked on it, and then it became the music video. Funny thing is, before that music video, the only animated music video was it Paul Abdul with the calf or whatever.
Okay.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
All about that.
And so what was funny about that is the music video came out and she was nominated for the MTV Music Awards. And so she had the animation playing on all the screens at the award show. And, it was right after her bankruptcy situation. And what was so funny is that Jay Leno brought her on. Was it the late show or something? And instead of talking about her financial situations, he was talking about the animation in the video,
Oh,
which is crazy. I think somewhere on YouTube that exists, but that was a highlight for me.
which was your work.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was incredible. And I want people to appreciate also the fact that you were there at the inception and launching of Cartoon Network when you said you didn't even know if it was a real opportunity worth leaving your secure job for.
Hmm.
And so, and that was the early 90s, I believe around 92 or so that Cartoon Network launched.
I think it was like, probably like 96, 97.
Okay, in the 90s, so almost 30, well, 30 years ago, basically. So from there to now, and you going on this new journey as a writer, it what would you say about the importance of ownership, as you're saying, like for people, for creatives and illustrators and, you know, other forms of artists? Would you, as you said, the author's work, what the author created is it stands, is not touched, and you always have to be honored and compensated for that.
Right.
That's very important in addition to the creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the utmost importance to maintain ownership of your creations. There's laws set aside for that. It's when you get into the entertainment side of things that people, like major studios that come, and if they find interest in your property, everybody wants a piece of the pie. So now you have to divvy up ownership in order for your projects to see the light of day. And so that's where a lot of independent animation creators do stuff now. The beauty of YouTube and social media allows for people to create things, put it out there, and still maintain their ownership. And if you get a large enough following, you don't necessarily need to have a network or distributor to put that on for people to see. You can put it on free platforms and build your own audience today.
So I know Daoud wants to get into some things in terms of drawing from your soul and what you brothers are both working on. But I want to um, just touch on some of these upcoming projects that you're excited about, Soul Sister and Dumas. you tell us about those projects?
Right now, I am working on a dream project called Soul Sister and the Masters of Melanin. It's cosmic mythology. It's my homage to things like Ultraman, Power Rangers, and Neon Genesis Evangelion, all boiled into one Afrofuturistic story in the form of a manga. I'm not this time I've taken a back seat and I partnered with a good friend of mine who I've worked with in the past. He goes by End of Days of Mars, but his name is Philip Johnson. Shout out to Philip. He's taken the reins as illustrator on the project so that I can focus on the storytelling and the writing. So I'm super excited about that project. I can't say who's publishing it at the moment, but it is one of the major publishers. And hopefully they'll make the announcement soon. And right now we have, a few books that we're putting out in that series, but hopefully it's going to be an ongoing series. And with Dumas is about a young Alexander Dumas. Dumas is a real person. He's one of the world's greatest authors who created The Three Musketeers and The Count of Monte Cristo. And a lot of people don't know that Alexander Dumas was black. And those tales that he wrote were kind of themed off of his father's explorations as the first black general in the French army. And so my curiosity is that first of all, the fact that a lot of people don't realize that he was black. Second of all, is like, what was his life as a child that inspired him to become an author? Because his father was a famous general in the French army and had passed away, had died by the time he was the age of 4. So he really didn't know his father that well, but he stood in the shadows of a great soldier, but he had a desire to be an author. So I was curious what type of adventures he would go on. And so that's where I'm kind of tapped into now. And for that book, it's like a chapter book for kids, but it's a swashbuckling action adventure series where you see a young Alexander Dumas going through his life trying to decide which is more powerful, the pen or the sword.
Okay. And so for people like me, I must have known he was black because I'm pronouncing it like so. But let's spell the last name so that we can follow this story and look it up and learn. Because it's beyond, we grew up learning about, George Washington Carver and, Frederick Douglass. We need to add Alexander Dumas. How do you spell that?
It's Dumas.
Dumas.
Yes,
Okay.
that's a silent.
Okay.
It's a French name.
Okay. And so then we're gonna go on in reverse in a sense, and let's spell Soul Sister the way it is spelled for your book, so we can follow that as well.
Soul Sister is SOL. Soul is another word for sun. She's a sun goddess.
Some
So it's SOL, sister, SISTAH. But you know how when black people name something, they put their stamp on it by putting a little flavor on there. So I put the AH on it. Yeah.
okay, that makes it our own. So we have some magic going on here right now, while we're in the studio, so to speak, bringing the audience into you all's creative process. So, um, don't want to overlook what is happening here. And can you first of all, I want to understand more about you all's relationship and working together on the highly acclaimed series Iano. How did you all meet? How did that process come about that you work on this series together?
Well, I know how I met Dawud. I want to hear his version of how we met.
But actually, we need to hear your story. Your
All
story.
right, I want to hear your perspective of what it was. I want to hear you. I'll tell you how I saw that interaction, and you tell me how you saw the interaction.
And we go back to uh, Wild Hair Studios was where we first met, right?
Correct.
Yeah, there was a studio when I first moved to Atlanta. uh, in the early 2000s. So they had to been like 2001, maybe?
Yeah, around about that time.
Yeah.
Wild hair. Okay.
Yeah, they were working on Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Yeah. And I don't think my story is as ex- dramatic and impactful as his. I just remember us meeting.
Hmm.
I don't remember all the little nuances, and I think his memory is just better
Okay.
than mine.
So what's your story though?
That we met. Yeah, he just met. I mean, about an artist I know, I remember where we met. I may not remember the exact
Okay.
moment. So it always cracks me up that Saxon, he has the picture perfect. Oh yeah, I
Okay.
remember.
I would tell you.
Yes, no,
I would
but
tell you
all
how.
of the
I
story.
would tell you how it happened. I was working at Wild Hair. I knew Matt Jenkins, and a couple other guys that started the company. And I was freelancing around, and they were telling me while they were working on I was working on Aqua Teen at the same time. But oh man, there's this guy. His name is Dawud, and his stuff looks just like yours. Now, mind you, when I was working in animation, doing the Cartoon Network stuff, segueing into Adult Swim, I had to work twice as hard as most of the other directors there and meet their deadlines because they had assistants. I didn't have assistants. I had to turn in the same amount of work same time they did
Really?
because they quote unquote didn't have enough people in the animation industry at the time that I could train as an assistant. So I had to do double the work. And so I was the only black dude in that group in Atlanta working on this stuff for Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. And so when they said that there was another black gentleman that their stuff looked like mine, I was a little bit arrogant back then. And I apologize to all the people that I worked alongside with back in those days that I kind of, ticked off. But as soon as they said somebody draws like me, I was like, man, don't nobody draw like me. Who's this guy? And I didn't take the time to kind of figure out who he was. I didn't sync him out. I just like, man, can't nobody draw like me. Y'all must be,
Don't nobody do
yeah, don't nobody do it like me. And then one day, everybody was gone to lunch. I came in and I saw Dawood sitting down there at the desk, just working away. And I was, that must be that brother they said could draw like me. Let me go say what's up. So I walked down there.
Was your fist balled up?
No, I wasn't balled up. I walked down there and he was focused. He was extremely,
right.
he was extremely
Oh,
focused. And I walk up to him and say, hey man, what you working on? I didn't say what you man. I said, what you working on? He said, oh man, Chris got me doing some inks on this. I was, I'm very cool. I was like,
Did I say it like that?
yeah, he said, well, no, some ink he got me doing some inks. He was inking see some animation drawings, and then I was like, "Is your name Dawood?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm Dawood." And I was like, I said, "Hey, I usually ask people, can I see your sketchbook or some of your work, your personal work, especially if they say that his stuff looks like mine." And mind you, I had to take this moment and put a pause in the story to let you know when I was younger, before I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta, there used to be this event called Black Expo. You go into the Black so
here's Black X.
yeah. But this one was in Atlanta,
Okay.
and they would have, hair care products, clothing, makeup, stuff like that. And then there was a booth where they had these guys had this thing called Brother Man. And I was like, what? There's a black comic book? And so
Black by the
I went over there, and while comic books, I used to love Marvel and all that other stuff, DC, and comic books were like cheap. They were like, what, 75 cents, something like that. Brother Man at the time was like $3,
$2.
$2, which
Yeah.
was like a
That
lot.
was too.
That was a lot. And so I was like, man, give me all of them. Give me what? Because it was like I don't see black comics that often. And on the comic book, it said David Sims. I was like, oh man, this must be the artist, David Sims. And I would toil over those comics because it looked nothing like the Marvel comics, the characters bursted off the panels, and it was very much embodied hip hop, the hip hop culture of that time. And so I was like fiending over those books, the art style, everything. So now let's fast forward back into our story.
David Sims.
As I asked Dawud, hey man, you got a sketchbook or some of your portfolios? Oh man, I got some comic books. And as soon as he leaned over his desk towards his bag, I looked down, I beat his hand down to his bag, and I saw Brother Man Comics, and my heart sunk. And I got really cold. Then I got really hot. And then I got really humbled as he pulled out the Brother Man Comics.
Whoa.
And he was like, yeah, man, these are some of my comics. And I was stunned there for a minute, because I know he didn't mean that these are some that I collected, because I asked this for his portfolio. And then when I realized, man, I was so humbled. I think I said a few more words, and then I left embarrassed.
You met Jim. You met.
Yeah, somebody that idolized for some time, that I met in person.
Yeah.
That's the first time. And I'll tell you this, that humbled me for the rest of my life. You never know who you're gonna meet. Um, and so I was really appreciative after I met him. We became friends
Oh,
ever since. And so that's how he and I met.
such a humble legend here. I know you don't like for that to be said, but what an honor at this point when you think about the fact that they say he draw like you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like some Joe's better than me.
Now it's like we have our own style, it reminded me like, when I was working in one studio and, the people there said I look like 50 Cent.
It's you must have been a melanated brother there.
I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "It must be the only brother in the studio." So I get it. I get it. But yeah, I say that's a much more epic story for the live action movie than my interpretation. Because me, I'm just drawn, and my memories of Wild Hair are not abundant. Like I can't think of a whole lot of different things. Just remember the people that I met there. It was cool, and for me, it was like a great opportunity to be able to be in an environment to learn.
Hmm.
But so all right, so my question is, during your journey, like the challenges, um, what would you say? Did you have any questions like that talked about the challenges and overcoming the challenge?
Absolutely. I mean, for one, you talked about Cartoon Network and that being a training ground, but also about how didn't have an assistant. You had to do double the work. And, uh, was there ever a point with you being so determined? Was there ever a point that you questioned um, the path that you were taking uh, as an illustrator, as an animator? Based on either what you were dealing with in the industry or anything personal that you were going through.
There was a lot of times where I had to restart, uh, restart my career, restart my life. And those are very tough times. You have to reinvent yourself. Most of those times were in my adulthood, after I became a father and I was married. I went through a divorce during the pandemic. I had my own company, and I had divorced myself from my business partner at that time. So it was threefold. You had George Floyd, you had the pandemic, had a divorce, and I was losing my business.
Oh, you had two divorces.
Yeah, and that was during the pandemic, and lost all my properties.
Your business
Uh,
one and your personal one at the same time during the pandemic.
yep, lost a lot of the things that I had created,
Mm,
and
wow.
during that time, I had to reinvent myself, learn how to love myself again, and then start over. And then during that time, I created all new properties. And what was funny is 'cause I have a drawing that I did during the pandemic where I drew a self-portrait, a little cartoon character of myself, and then I drew the 7-year-old me because I had to tap into the 7-year-old me that was brave enough to draw things without any no holds barred, right? Because as an adult, I lost all the things that I had created at that time. It was kind of hard to draw and be inspired and do new ideas and new stories and things like that. And so I tapped into my 7-year-old self to lock back into that creativity and create things like Soul Sister, and so that was I created a couple other things like, the 10 speedies about a cross country cycling family of cats. And so those are things that were spawned after that, that period when I needed to restart. And then also I took a leap of faith after working on Ianu to, I made a conscious decision that I wanted to start focusing on my own stories. And between the pandemic and the end of Ianu, I had to put my stories on the back burner and sit them on the shelf and not touch them for about 3 years. And so it wasn't until 2024 that I dusted them all off and started pursuing them again. And so, yeah, being able to reinvent yourself and restart things over from scratch has been very challenging, but also beneficial. And I don't regret anything that's happened in the past because it provided a space for things to take place now.
Now, challenging, beneficial, and necessary, I would say. So during that time, what types of things did you do in that process of loving yourself and tapping into your 7-year-old self? Because one of the themes that we find in these shows is art becomes healing, art becomes like therapeutic, whatever form of art you enjoy most. So, what was that process like for you, loving yourself as a human being, as a man?
For a lot of people, loving yourself is very hard because you pour into others before you pour into yourself. And so during the pandemic, I was lucky enough to have, my children. They were in Virginia at the time as I was in Los Angeles, going through the divorce. But, you know, I took up cycling and I fell in love with cycling, riding there on the Santa Monica Beach and all over Los Angeles was very freeing. And I found joy in cycling. That's kind of what kind of brought me back to find joy in something. And then once the joy kicked in, I knew that I had value and that I brought value to others and other projects and things like that, that I deserve to bring that value to myself.
That's pretty deep because also, that rings true to drawing from the soul, like that you had to draw from your 7-year-old self to save yourself,
Hmm.
and because when I think of like a lot of times as we get older, and we get beat up by the world or challenged by the world, doesn't necessarily mean that the world has prevailed, but that's what we face. And going back to your childhood is really there's a lot of power there.
Hmm.
I can't say for everybody because everybody has different life journeys that they walk. But I think for a lot of us, like that's where we found our joy. That's where we found our happiness. We weren't uh we didn't feel any restrictions to our creativity. And you weren't creating for anybody but your soul, like
Hmm.
for yourself. And that kind of gets lost over the years. So then when you can tap back into that power, it actually renews you. So I thought that was really powerful that you shared that because a lot of people out here now who may be going through the what do you call the creative blocks, having creative blocks, or like you said, going through the divorce and the divorcing of the company and things like that. These are debts, and these are things that a lot of people they don't come back from, that they don't know how to come back from it. and you just gave people like um an option, like something to look at. Like, hey, look, go back to your old sketchbooks, go back to your old stories that you wrote when you were a child.
And
Because those books, those stories are still original.
right.
You can still take those stories and bring them out because only you really know those stories better than anybody else, and just add a mature spin to it. But anyone you want to add to?
Yeah, I mean, like you said about the stories, and Saxon, you said how you started writing your own stories. I assume you mean stories about your own life,
Mhm.
and then you put them on the shelf for 3 years. Um, so was that process of writing your stories therapeutic for you, or what did that bring out of you
Yeah.
as you were writing your stories?
Well, I created them out of finding new joy in myself. And then when a job opportunity came up, I knew in the industry you have to like you can't work on your own stuff when you're working at a corporation or a business like that. So I had to put it all on the shelf. Um and once I was freed to focus back on them, I was able to think, when you have ideas for stories, you're in the thought process is when you're building. Have your building blocks mentally and the desire to do so. So I kind of had them tucked away in a bottle with the lid on top. And then in 2024, I took the lid off and they just exploded. So now I was able to really put pen to paper and start writing out the stories that I had been dreaming and thinking about for years.
That's really inspiring, from a number of different angles, because I personally think it's important for everybody has a story, as they say, and for your story to be preserved in some kind of way. Like, for example, with your mother, all those years at Eckert's
Mhm.
sausage, well, I remember for the sausage, and then discovering that, she could draw, and then she, drew beautiful flowers and all of that. And so that history, of course, needs to be preserved. So I commend you and appreciate you and just encourage everybody in some form or fashion to preserve your story.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So I think you pretty much covered all the points today.
You got to share that picture because that was my graffiti name and you spelled it correctly.
Okay. And so before we do that real quick, since we're wrapping this up with both of you all here, first of all, I want to commend you again for you being a force in terms of representation at these companies. And I know that you all came back together and for this project, Yanu. And I want to congratulate both of you all for the premiere of the film happening. So, could you tell us uh, what meant the most to you, or what means the most to you about that project, that animated series based on African mythology? Could you tell us about that
Yeah, I
experience?
knew it was a great vehicle for a great vehicle for me to work with some of the people I've been wanting to work with for a long time. People like Dawood, who I've been a fan of for years. And mind you, Black Panther had came out earlier, and that kind of proved that Black storytelling in the action adventure space was palatable to the world. And so this project was going to do the same in the animated space. And so I really enjoyed working with my friends and colleagues and making sure that people of color were on the business side and on the creative side. That's why I wanted to set up a lot of the pre-production here in Atlanta because I knew a lot of the talent was here. The Klein and Cartoon Network was here in Atlanta, and so it was like a familiar ground. The essence of Black culture resides here in Atlanta as well. And so being able to set up shop and work amongst those people and giving people like Dawood and Darnell Johnson, who was another director on there, and another friend of mine, Esteban, who I've worked with in the past, we all came together and, made something special as directors for this project. And it was great working with them because I knew Dawud and Darnell were great storyboard artists. Darnell had worked on the Spider-Verse film. Dawud, phenomenal comic book artist. He worked on Black Lightning and storyboards. So I knew it was like, man, if there was any project that I could provide space for them to have their chance as a debut as a director, this would be the one. So, working with great people that I admired was the best part for me to do something special. And the proof is what you see on the screen. We had a great time working on it. And, Dawood brought capoeira into the fold. I knew that all the elements that came together for this project fit like a glove, and it shows on the screen.
And so I was just trying to make sure the distinction because in terms of Lionsgate,
Mm,
um, who produced Keanu and a lot of people like, see, that's what I'm saying. A lot of us, it's like I know it and then I get it mixed up, but we want to make the distinction that it is Lion Forge,
Right.
which is a black.
Because yeah, a lot of people did say Lionsgate.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I know it, and then we'll easily, I just want to state that to say, imagine in the environment, this is a black-owned, company, and you all are doing capoeira, creating Yanu, African mythology animated series. So again, congratulations to you both on that. So now that we are here and this is your process is unfolding, share first of all, why you wanted to sit down today and actually draw. This is the first time doing this in the studio with with another acclaimed artist here. Why did you want to actually do it this way?
Well, with Drawn from the Soil, as you can see, we're doing a different format for this episode. I think it's pretty cool. A lot of our guests are not in our same vicinity. I don't have a the studio at the time, but Saxon was available, so I said, hey, why don't we try something a little bit different? Because we have the Drawing from the Soul sketch jams where we're going to get people together to draw, you know, because I think it's a good idea because a lot of times we're in our quiet space, we sit solo and we draw. And this is kind of like you said, the 7-year-old self. Remember when you used to be with your friends and y'all sit around and draw and say, hey, we can draw, man. I'm drawing Hope, man. Who you drawing, man? I'm drawing like a monster. We play the rats. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's was whatever gets your blood um moving. So as adults, a lot of us we still yearn for that, like that interaction of being around each other and drawing around each other. So we're drawing from the soul. I'm having these sketch jams, and this is kind of like a little mini sketch jam interview. But I plan to do more of these things where we get artists together, where we come out of our space, maybe meet up in some public locations, or maybe some nature trails and things like that, and bring our sketchbooks and come, laptops or whatever turns you on, and just sit around with each other and draw and share our stories. So this was fun. It was an opportunity to just listen to sets and share stories. We don't have to be so uh formal every time. Sometimes just have a little fun.
Like they say, pick up the phone and call somebody sometime. Come over and draw. So I see one of you is drawing digitally and one of you is drawing, traditionally.
Right.
And what is the difference for you, Saxon, in terms of drawing digitally versus drawing traditionally?
Digitally is what I usually use to get things done quick for clientele. It's also a way for me to do things for myself that will end up on the computer. But for the most part, I really enjoy drawing on paper because there's a connection to the paper and feeling the pencil glide across the paper and have that grit. I mean, I have a cover on my iPad as well that kind of emulates that, but the connection between paper and pencil is what I started out in, and so that's where a lot of my I'll draw on paper and pencil within my sketchbook and take a photo of it, and I use it digitally to do the finishing.
Mm. Okay. And what are you drawing from today?
Today I was doodling a picture of Alexander Dumas, young. This is my design for a young Alexander Dumas. Here at the bottom right. I don't know. It's just gonna look clear, but
We're gonna get your screen. When you get the screen thing, we're gonna incorporate that.
so that's a young Alexander Dumas that I've designed for my story, and this is the sketch that I was working on today of him choosing the sword.
Choosing the sword.
Yeah.
Okay.
This
This is a
part-
premiere here. Alexander Dumas. Thank you for sharing that, for educating a lot of us. And we look forward to that project coming out. So, Brother Dawud, what are you drawing today? What are you pulling from?
I drew our guests. I drew our in-studio guests.
Okay. He said you got the name right too.
Yeah. I hope I can. I drew it on an angle, so sometimes when I draw
The angle. Yes. And you were drawing him. Profile. Oh my God. What is this? Drawing from the soul. This is epic right here. And so tell us about this name, Sax. Is it
that's
Saxon?
yeah. When I lived in San Francisco, I used to, go around to the graffiti, uh, alleys and on the train tracks. I met a lot of graffiti artists, so I had to come up with a tag name. So my name is Saxton, but I had an acronym, SACKS instead of SAX, and I used the number 10.
Any significance to the number 10?
No, just 10.
10, son. All right, cool. So, well, last thing. What does drawing from the soul mean to you before we wrap?
For me, drawing from the soul means living in my purpose. I was given a God-given talent, and with my imagination and my skills with drawing. So drawing from the soul is that outlet from my creative spirit onto the paper or onto the screen, what have you. Like I said before, my mom had that ability, but didn't live in her purpose. So, like I said, I'm beyond her wildest dreams. And so that's what drawing from the soul means to me.
That's what's up. Hey. All right. So, for everybody tuned in, thank you for watching. And we want you to please comment if you have any comments about today's show, anything that made you want to share a story that's related, please drop it into the comments. Definitely need your likes. Get the likes up and share this video out. Share it to your friends. They don't have to just be artists, just anybody creative or anybody just walking this journey in life that wants to get inspired. And tell them they need to tune into this channel so then they can all continue to be drawing from the soul.
Drawing from the soul. And I want to contribute my little piece right here, because what I took this is a heart. Love yourself is what Brother Saxton said. Love yourself. So it's my contribution.
We're going to get a close-up of your heart and put it on the
Okay,
fan.
let me fix it up before you do all of that. I just wanted to, participate.
Okay, and we'll wrap it up with that.
Peace.